This is the reason that apologetics is just so exhausting and so tiring. It's not atheists, it's not Buddhists, it's not even Muslims. It's everybody, welcome back to the channel. It is me, the Layman Apologist. Today I'm back with a short little video. This video is not something I normally do, but I do want to address something because I see it not just here on YouTube, but I see it on X, I see it on Instagram, I see it on Threads, I see it on any social media that I am on. And it's not just me, I've spoken to a few other apologists about this as well, and it's just something that is very tiring and very exhausting. Now, a lot of work goes into being an apologist. There's the research, there's the planning of videos, there's scripts, there's getting your setup, all of these things, very tiring. Apologists try their best to put out good material for their audience. But what makes it really exhausting is negative comments. It's not negative comments from Muslims or atheists or anything else. It's actually negative comments from Christians. Not just negative comments from them, but traps. And what I mean by traps, well, sometimes you will get people asking you a question that is not actually in good faith. Now, I hold my hands up. You cannot always tell when someone is laying a trap, or, maybe they're not even laying a trap. Maybe you're just having an off day and you're reading their question wrong. However, I'm going to share some screenshots today, and I'm completely going to blank out the name of the person that I was interacting with for two reasons. One, this video is not intent on dragging that person or bringing this out into the wider internet for more people to have a go at them. Two, it's also the fact that I've had positive interactions with this guy in the past, and he seems like a nice guy. So I don't know whether he was just having an off day or whatever it was. He had a very negative interaction with me for, honestly, what I can tell, I don't actually know, but his energy was off, and it wasn't just me that felt this way. A lot of people on X were liking the thread as they were going along. A couple of guys sent me a DM asking, what's up with this? What's happening? It was just a very weird encounter. Now, I'm actually going to share the encounter today. Again, not to drag this guy, but I just want to point out that this type of thing does happen. And folks, just because I have apologist in my title, or just because some of the other guys that I collab with have apologist in their title, or some of them even just go by their own name, it does not mean you get to speak to us in a manner that it is degrading, demanding, or even laying of a trap. Let's go ahead. I'm going to put these up on the screen as well, but I'm going to read this as it goes along. Friend of mine, he's a Roman Catholic. He's called Blue Collar Bible Scholar. We've had him on the channel before. He posted, and I'm not going to share the full thing. You can see a little snippet of it here, and he says, I'm going to be honest, I never heard the phrase Sola Scriptura until after I became a Catholic. My entire life, Baptist, non-denominational, Assembly of God, 5 years Church of Christ. And he goes on to say he had never heard the term Sola Scriptura before. That's not my critique of him. In fact, this wasn't a critique of him at all. And by the way, just in case anyone's thinking this is not the guy that we're talking about. So I give him a message ahead of time and says, hey, look, I'm going to share your post because it actually hits on something that I've been talking about a lot recently too. So here it is. And I know you guys can already see this, but I'm just going to go through this. I said, not a criticism of my friend here, but this is what I've been saying for a long time on the opposite camp, the opposite scale. So I'm a Protestant. I said many Protestants, and I air quote that because I'm not being horrible. People seem to think I'm being horrible whenever I air quote Protestants, whenever I'm referring to specific people or specific groups. But what I'm talking about here when I say Protestants, air quote, it's people that take the label of Protestant but don't have any of the Protestant tradition behind them. They don't hold any actual traditional Protestant beliefs. They often don't know what Sola Scriptura is, and that's not necessarily a fault on them. That is a fault of bad teaching. But I go on to say many Protestants don't know what Sola Scriptura is, and worse, they often defend and present Sola Scriptura. Now, if you're coming here in this video to start a debate between, is Sola Scriptura even viable, or, sola versus solo, look, I'm just going to be ignoring the comments. I'm not doing that type of content at the moment. There's plenty of other guys out there that are. I'm just addressing something that I honestly do see happening a lot, and it's people saying they're presenting Sola Scriptura, but what they're really doing, presenting Sola Scriptura. Some of this is going to look a little bit funky because I tried to remove the username profile picture, and I even on my end removed the ability to see likes because I don't want to put up screenshots like this and make it look like, oh, look how many likes I got and he got 0. It's got nothing to do with that, so I removed that, so that's not even part of the conversation. But he just replied very simply, I don't think you know what Sola Scriptura means. Okay, so piqued my interest. I was like, and how is that? Someone says, I don't think you know something. Your normal response, especially if you've never had a bad interaction with this person before, would be to say, okay, explain. So he goes on to say, tell us what you think it means. Now already alarm bells start going up in my head. And why alarm bells? This is already not good faith. You come along to someone's comments and you're saying things like, I don't think you know what X means, but you won't provide a reason for why you think that. You're just going to insinuate you think that and say, hey, look, I actually don't think you understand. I'm already a little bit confused because I say I've had nothing but positive interactions with this guy before. I just simply replied, and how is that? And then he says, tell us what you think it means. This is really childish in a lot of ways. I don't know the grading system in America for like schools and stuff. Here, primary schools, when you're a real young kid, this reminded me of when you were in primary school and there was always that one kid that pretended to know everything. Whenever you questioned him and said, hey, okay, say what it means, he would always reply with, no, you tell me what it means, and then that way I'll know you know what it means, because he didn't. No, I'm not saying that in the case of this person, but it really gave off those vibes of, no, I'm not telling you, you tell me what it means. So I said this, I said, you made an assertion that I don't. The burden is on you, which it is. And I said, to be honest, I don't even know why you made it the assertion. What in my history, meaning my timeline on X, what in my history gives you the idea that I don't know what it is? Because I've talked about Sola Scriptura versus Sola Scriptura extensively. It's a completely fair ask on my end. What is it that I've shared that makes you think I don't know what Sola Scriptura is? So he comes back and he air quotes it and he says, I don't think is an opinion, not an assertion. Let me just say this. Opinions are assertions. You couched it behind, I think, to lessen the degree of certainty that you have. But that is still an assertion. You came along and asserted / insinuated that I don't know what I'm talking about. Which, okay. If I don't know what I'm talking about, I don't know what I'm talking about. My issue, though, but is the way that all of this has been framed. It is not been done in good faith. He did not come along and ask me a question and say, hey, could you explain this? I automatically just concede for the sake of not having an argument. I don't come back with, well, actually, no, it is still an assertion. I just say, okay, so you implied it then. Now, why don't you think I know what I'm talking about? And he comes back with, you're dodging. Dodging what? You haven't asked a question. You've asked it in a manner that is a trap. And it's also very demanding. Why should I answer you whenever you're not going to tell me why you think it is what you think? It's very weird. It's very off behavior. Here's how I know it's off behavior. I've shared this with other people before I've made this video. They agree it's very weird and that I should address it, because it's not just this, it's other things. And we'll come on to that. I don't want this to be a long video. So I say this, dodging from what? You said you think I don't know what it means, and I just simply asked why, which again is reasonable. Other than that, I don't owe you an answer simply because you think I owe you an answer. So he comes back and he says, I asked what you think it means. Answer or don't. Your call. Okay. He's given me a chance. He says, answer or don't. I chose not to. I chose not to answer because I knew he wasn't being in good faith. And this proves it, because watch whenever he doesn't get the answer that he wants, that he clicked his fingers and I didn't jump. Watch what happens. I said, sweet. Very Northern Irish phrase, by the way. Sweet. I will let you have your opinion. I'm not a performing seal, which is true. You don't get to come along. You can ask me a question. I have got no problem answering a question or sharing my beliefs if I am asked like a human being. Don't come along and click your fingers. Don't come along and lay out little traps. Be a human being, and especially if you are a professing Christian, why not ask with sincerity? Why not ask with a little bit of charity? I don't know whether he was having a really bad day or whatever it is. That's why I'm blurring his name out and stuff. I'm not trying to drag the guy. This is just an example of the type of stuff that goes on all the time. So he says, weird reply. An apologist should want to answer, one would think. Again, I already knew this was a somewhat of a trap from the beginning, but this framing immediately shows you what his intent was. He weaponizes the fact that in my handle I have the Layman Apologist. Here's the thing, I don't have to defend every single little thing I say online if you're going to come along and demand that I defend every little thing I say online, especially when I'm sharing an insight of something and I'm not actually presenting a case. I was not presenting a case of whether Sola Scriptura was true or anything else. I was simply sharing that a lot of Protestants get sola and Sola Scriptura very, very wrong. So he immediately weaponizes it with an apologist should want to answer. Well, I should want to answer because you came along and said, I think you believe this, and then you won't provide me any justification or any grounds for why you think you believe that about me. So much for my choice. I could either answer or don't. Apparently it wasn't a big deal until it was a big deal because he didn't get the answer he wanted. So I said, only weird to you. Why would I answer something that you think about me? Like I said, especially whenever you didn't elaborate, you didn't provide any grounds. So I called it what it was. I said, you're playing games, my friend. Answer or don't. I was referring back to his question. And I said, then followed by his reply, which was weird reply. I said, you aren't acting in good faith. Like, it was evident to me from the beginning he wasn't acting in good faith. But by the time we're this far along, it's really evident he's not acting in good faith. Look what it immediately goes to. It immediately goes to an insult. The defensive apologist. Really? This is how you're going to treat a Christian brother? Especially whenever you haven't provided me for, your reasoning. Why do you think I don't know what I'm talking about whenever it comes to Sola Scriptura? Why do you think I can't define a very simple term? And let's just say, for argument's sake, I can't. Okay, let's just say I can't. Why would you come along and frame it in the manner you did? Maybe you just had a bad day. Fair enough. I'm not even really directly addressing you. I'm kind of addressing the overall thing. This happens a lot, not just to me, but to other apologists online, even to other Christians. So immediately stick to the attack, the defensive apologist. So I replied a little bit, I'll be honest, I match energy. So I replied and I just said the game playing, whatever his username was. And then he replies and says, whatever, that says a lot about you. You won't even define Sola Scriptura. No, he meant Sola Scriptura. I think that was just autocorrect on his phone. And he said, noted, that says a lot about you. It says a lot about me that I won't jump to your command, that I will not be a clapping seal to perform to you whenever you click your fingers and go, define this, without asking me, hey, what is it you believe? Am I misunderstanding something about how you view Sola Scriptura versus Solo? No, just straight. I don't think you know what it means, okay? Big deal. That's what I said at the beginning. I was kind of like, okay, well then tell me why you think that. He wouldn't provide any reason for why he thought that. It was just straight into demanding you answer, you tell me, and he won't agree with that framing. But anyone I've showed this to has agreed this was demanding. This was, without him outright saying, hey, look, you definitely answer. He is demanding that I answer. And whenever he left it as you can answer or not, and I choose not, that shows you what his attitude was right away. It goes to insults. The defensive apologist. Last interaction we had, I say this, I won't defend something when someone comes along with, I think this about you, and won't explain to me why. It's not good faith. I don't owe you an answer. You can note whatever you want about it, but it's not unreasonable on my end. And he just simply replies with, okay. Like I said, this video is not an attack on this gentleman. I actually quite like the guy. Had positive interactions with him in the past. Like I said, don't know whether he was just having a bad day. But the reason why I'm making this video is more so for the overall theme of it. This is something that happens an awful lot on social media and an awful lot on YouTube. Now on YouTube, recently I've been getting comments left, right and centre from atheists and progressive Christians. They're really not liking the material that I put out, which is it's like water off a duck's back to me. I expect those things from atheists. I expect those things from non-Christians. What is not good though, on the other hand, is whenever you receive comments or questions that are laid out as traps from fellow brothers and sisters in Christ, that's when it becomes an issue. That's where it becomes, okay, if we're on the same team, we may not actually agree on certain doctrines, we may not actually agree on how we articulate things, but we should have grace towards one another. I'm not innocent in this. There's times where I lack grace with people and it's wrong with me, and I confess it to God, I confess it to you, and I ask for forgiveness. My issue overall is Christians doing this to each other in comment section on X. The internet breeds this type of thing. We need to learn how to speak to one another once again, not just as human beings, but we need to learn to speak to one another as brothers and sisters in Christ, even in matters we disagree over. Not everything should be combative. This gent may not have been intending to be combative, but that's exactly how it came across. It came across in a very trap setting feel. That's what it felt like. And then the further we get through the exchange, you see how his message is devolved, but it slowly comes into, no, you provide what I want, you can have a choice to do it or not, but the choice isn't actually real, and whenever I don't get the answer I want, I'm going to call you names like the defensive apologist. That's fine. You call me whatever you want. I don't actually care in that regard. The reason why I'm making the video is to say that this is a whole needs to stop. Christians need to stop treating each other like this online. It's not Christ-like. It doesn't honor the Lord. And to be honest, I'm just kind of sick of it. So from this point forward, if I receive any of these type of messages from Christians again, I'm just not interacting with you. Feel free to unfollow. I actually don't care. I don't care whether you follow or don't. I like whenever people follow and we interact and have a good time. But if you're going to be a jerk, I've got no time for it. Anyway, folks, thanks very much for watching. God bless.